Welcome back to the channel, guys, and today we're going to be talking about some of McLaren's long-tail legends. And no, guys, I in no way mean the 600LT or the 675LT or the 765LT, because I in no way consider them long-tails, because they do not have as much of an elongated rear end such as them being worthy of the name long-tail. But nevertheless, the P1 GT and the F1 GT definitely live up to the name long-tail, and I'll be comparing both of them, see which trumps over the other, and I'll be giving my personal opinion as to which I would pick. And of course, starting off with the P1 GT, this thing is obviously based on the track-only weapon, i.e. the P1 GTR, of which 59 were made, and initially 3 P1 GTs were made, but later on Dean Lanzante said that 10 of the pre-existing 59 P1 GTRs will also be getting the P1 GT conversion kit, making the total production output of the P1 GT 13 units, and if any of the 10 P1 GTS were already road legal, it would set the owner back about £500,000. But if it had to be done from scratch, basically sourcing a new P1 and doing the entire conversion, it would set the owner back about £2 million. And I would do it because it is, of course, a proper long tail, that massive wing, a track weapon and so on. Given the fact that it's literally based on the P1 GTR, I would do it. And it literally takes a couple bits from the P1 GTR, such as removes a couple of bits, such as it removes the front canards, it adds some massive front louvers, and the spec are completely reminiscent of the legendary F1 GT, which we'll be taking a look at in a bit. The beautiful green paint job with the tan interior and silver wheels, a beautiful spec in its own, and of course a carbon fiber body, carbon ceramics, that massive rear wing, which is a literal dinner table in its own, a dinner table I wouldn't mind having, a very prominent roof scoop on the roof, which is actually functional. Of course, P1 HDK style mirrors mounted on the A pillar, a beautiful spec in its own, a very big front splitter as well, and this in fact completely jettisons the single exhaust system in the rear, where this has got a quad exhaust system coming out the back. And if you ask me, this looks way better and suits this profile way more. I don't know why it does. I personally love the single exhaust port, but this just looks way more better, and given the fact that this has a way more elongated rear end, it just suits it all the more better. And coming to the interior, remember that this is based on the P1 GTR, right? It doesn't have a P1 GTR style interior, because the P1 GTR has complete carbon fiber buckets, no aircon, just a pure racing machine, and that is an F1 style steering wheel. But this has a unique U style steering wheel with a dual tone interior of cream with a military green color and sport seats as well, but it matches the spec, as I said, the green paint job with the silver wheels with the tan interior, and this is quite comfortable while being a complete track weapon, which puts out 986 brake horsepower, coming from a 3.8 liter twin turbocharged V8. Wow, a complete track weapon. And this means that with all these, this thing improves in terms of downforce and aero. And of course, as I said, it's a proper track weapon based on the GTR, of course. And of course, guys, the P1 on its own is one of the most, no, it is one of the most legendary and revolutionary hypercars to ever be created in this world. I mean, if you ask me, the P1, in my opinion, is the best of the whole eternity. It trumps over the 918 and laugh solely because of its driving experience, because it can actually scare you shitless, because it was literally done by Jezza when he drove it around Spa-Francorchamps in the wet. He did not take Eau Rouge flat out, and even if he did it non-flat out in the rain, it still scared him shitless. And that is exactly why I love the P1. That twin turbo sound of that V8 is just too good, and given the fact that it comes with a long tail variant, just compels me even more that the P1 is my favorite. And of course, this thing is a proper beauty in its own. As I said, only 13 being built, a complete track weapon on its own. And of course, it was unveiled at the 2018 Goodwood Festival of Speed, and this thing was a proper hit on its own. I mean, just look at it, that proper elongated look on its own is to die for. This is a proper long tail, guys. It isn't the 600LT or the 675LT or the 765LT. It is the P1 GT. I call him the GTLT, the F1 GTLT, the P1 GTLT. You get me? Because it's actually a proper long tail, but according to the factory, it is called the P1 GT, and Lanzante did a stellar job on this, making this a proper long tail in its own. I wish they would have done this with other models such as the 675 or the 765 or the 600LT, but nevertheless, this is a proper legendary hypercar, and in my opinion, the best of this generation. Of course, the F1 being the only competitor to this. What do you guys think? And moving on to the McLaren F1 GT, guys, now this thing was a radical example crafted by Gordon Murray to fight against some of the most legendary race cars of its time, i.e. the holy trinity of the late 90s of the race car generation, i.e. the Mercedes CLK GTR, the Porsche 911 GT1 and the McLaren F1 GTR. And now this thing was a proper weapon, guys. I mean, the fact that he created a road homologated version still gobsmacks me. Initially, actually, only one was created as a developmental prototype, but due to the high demand, two more were created in a production spec and they are thereby owned. Even this one, all three of the F1 GTs are owned, guys, by private individuals. This exact one in Silverstone green with the silver wheels, with GT insignia, with the tan interior, which is literally the same spec as we saw on the P1 GT, is owned by a private collector in Switzerland. The second one is a flayed black spec in the collection of the Sultan of Brunei, and the third one was in fact painted in burgundy when it left the factory, and it got a complete repaint a couple of years ago when it went back to MSO, and it got repainted to a dual tone of silver and black, and it was in fact displayed at the 2015 Goodwood Festival of Speed, and it is owned by a Japanese industrialist, and in fact displays it in the NAZ museum in Japan. But of course, guys, that means no, most of these are not driven as much. They are garage queen, but nevertheless they are still legends, and I hope they are driven. And of course, guys, this fact is a proper legend. I mean, the fact that a race car went from being a non-road legal to a road homologated one just gobsmacks me. I mean, that beautiful exposed carbon fiber splitter taken from the F1 GTR Longtail, that very prominent roof scoop on the top, the massive louvers which are in fact there, and even the roof scoop, both of these are present on the P1 GT as I showed, and of course the exact same matching spec. And of course, when this exact example left the factory, it left the factory with a complete red interior, and can you imagine just how green paint with a red interior would look? Wow, that would not be a good one. But later on, after a couple of years, it came back and it got the interior completely redone, and the result was this, a beautiful complete tan interior with this Silverstone green exterior with the silver wheels, with GT insignia. As I said, a beautiful spec in its own. It's got a vent right underneath the McLaren badge, because there is in fact a radiator right behind here so as to feed cool fresh air into it, and of course vents right underneath the indicators and fog lights to feed cool air to the brakes and wheels. And this in fact has higher arches, as you guys can see, because on a regular F1 it is flush with the body line. This has higher arches because this actually has wider arches as well to accommodate bigger wheels and tires. And of course those louvers, as I said, that massive elongated rear end. Of course the race car, as you guys can see, actually had a proper wing along with the ducktail, but the road homologated one, i.e. the F1 GT, did not have a wing. It just had the ducktail, as you guys can see. And if you ask me, this look is so sleek. It looks so much better without the wing. That just constant sleek move and just finishes off with the ducktail is to die for. It is similar to the Bugatti Chiron PROFILÉE, but this thing looks a million times better, and this is exactly why I prefer the F1 GT or the P1 GT, guys. I mean, it's got the 6.1 liter naturally aspirated BMW S70/2 V12 hooked to a 6-speed manual, and the engine puts out 627 brake horsepower, and it generates 650 Nm of torque, and the power goes to the rear wheels, of course, making this a proper track toy. And the fact that it's a proper long tail, even the P1 GT is, of course, but this just looks better, guys. I mean, this is one of the most legendary cars in its own. The fact that it has a V12 is compels me a lot, but it's a long tail as well, so a V12 and a long tail, you've got me. And of course that beautiful spec in its own, this spec exactly looks really good. Even the silver and black dual tone one looks really good. But even with all this elongated body and all the extra equipment, this thing still weighs in at lighter than a regular base McLaren F1, guys, where this thing weighs in at 1120 kilograms and the base regular F1 weighs in at 1140 kilograms. Wow. And of course, guys, as I said, 3 McLaren F1 GTs were made among all the 106 F1s, 67 of the base McLaren F1, 2 McLaren F1 HDKs or the high downforce kit ones, 6 McLaren F1 LMs, 28 F1 GTRs, non-long tail and long tail, and of course 3 F1 GTs, thereby completing 106 F1 units across all variants, guys. But the F1 GT is the one that has my heart, guys. I mean, just look at it. How can you say no to this? I mean, I would like to know your thoughts on this, guys. The P1 GT or the F1 GT, guys. Let me know in the comments, because obviously I'm going with the F1 GT. The V12, a long tail, that beautiful non-wing finish is to die for. I mean, I love a good wing, but this with that ducktail just has an exemplary rear end on its own. And of course, guys, this thing being a proper race car that was road homologated makes this even more aerodynamically and downforce inclined, making this a proper road going track toy in its own. And of course, being road legal with the triple F1 seat layout, a 6-speed manual and a howling NA V12 in the back, you can never go wrong. I mean, that really big exposed carbon fiber front splitter on its own, taken from the F1 GTR long tail, obviously a beautiful look. I mean, I still cannot get over the fact that that ducktail literally enhances the look more than of it having a wing. And of course, that same complete sleek look till the ducktail just finishes off a little bit to the top. That really very big prominent roof scoop on top, guys, butterfly doors, the triple F1 seat layout, the 5-spoke OZ racing wheels with GT insignia, a proper radical example crafted by the legendary engineering mind of Gordon Murray, guys. I mean, let me know in the comments which one did you take, the P1 GT or the F1 GT. For me though, I would definitely take the F1 GT. I will write it in stone and I'll give it to y'all. I will pick this. I don't care if it doesn't have a paddle shift gearbox. I don't care if it is not as tech savvy or as modernized. I give a crap because of the fact that this thing is a beautiful looking example and one of the most legendary cars. And of course, I'm a sucker for V12s and Longtails, and this is both of those put together, so it is obligatory for me to go and literally take this and just leave the P1 GT in the dust. But nevertheless, guys, let me know what you think in the comments. And of course, which one did you pick? The P1 GT, a 3.8 liter twin turbocharged V8, 986 brake horsepower, modernized, a proper paddle shift gearbox, of course, a complete new gen F1 if you will, but a proper legend of there. I will not question that, guys. It is one of the most legendary hypers to ever grace the grounds of this very planet. Or would you go for the F1 GT, the NA V12, one of the most legendary, literally the fastest car on the planet at a point. It is still the fastest naturally aspirated car to this day. And of course, a proper long tail variant. I mean, just look at that. If you want, you can take it with a wing. You can have it that way. You can have it without or with a wing. That ducktail does come either way. And I, for sure, I'm going to take one without a wing, guys. I mean, who wouldn't take it? An NA V12, a 6-speed manual, making this a proper raw powered one, revving up all the way to 7500 RPMs, a proper NA V12, a howling V12, although it is a BMW V12, I couldn't give a crap, it's a V12 of course. That really extended front end, that exposed carbon fiber splitter, everything is the fenders, the arched fenders if you will, the highly arched ones, the wider ones, the louvers, the roof scoop, the extended front end. I could go on and on about the elongated body, guys, but let me know in the comments, NA V12 F1 GT or a twin turbo V8 P1 GT. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember that sub button and click the bell to ensure that you don't miss out on any future videos. Thanks for watching, guys. See ya.